What would you do if you found out the people you love most were the ones secretly pulling the strings, dismantling your entire life? I poured my soul into my family, thinking it was love. But to them, I was just a ghost in the house and unpaid. Made with no days off and zero recognition for 6 years, they conditioned me to believe I was a failure. They didn't just gaslight me, they taught me how to gaslight myself. They didn't need to scream. They just planted this inner voice, a voice that always took their side against mine. I realized every failure. I've had the canceled trips, the guys I loved disappearing for no reason, wasn't bad luck. It was a systematic plan to keep me trapped as an unpaid servant and an emotional punching bag. But they have no clue. I'm not that broken girl anymore. I'm holding a folder right now called The Truth. And I'm waiting for the perfect moment right in the middle of this high-end wedding to rip the masks off every single one of them. Don't scroll, because what you're about to see isn't just an escape. It's the moment a broken piece shatters. The whole fake frame to paint her own life. Trust me, when a nice person finally hits back, it's an absolute earthquake. Today, I'm spilling everything about that perfect life in our colonial mansion in Westport. The lies woven by my own flesh and blood. And why I had to create an encrypted folder called The Truth. I'm Emily Thompson, at my parents' 35th anniversary party surrounded by crystal lights and fake toasts. About a model family, I stumbled upon a secret. It wasn't an affair. It wasn't embezzlement. It was way more twisted. My parents stood up in front of 40 guests. Looking so proud, they announced, to celebrate this milestone. Next week, the whole family is flying to Florida for a luxury getaway. The room erupted. My sister Sarah squealed like a kid. I smiled too, imagining sunsets and ocean waves. For the first time in years, I thought I was finally getting a break. Then I made a fatal mistake. I asked a simple question. Mom, what time does our flight leave? Suddenly, the air turned to ice. My dad looked at me like I was speaking an alien language. The smile on my mom's face hardened into a razor-sharp mask. Right there, in front of 40 people in designer clothes, my dad growled, "You don't need to know the flight time, Emily, because you're not on the list. Someone has to stay back, watch the house, and babysit Sarah's kids." Over 40 witnesses watched my own blood cut me out of the word family. Over 40 pairs of eyes landed on me, some pitying, some smirking. They thought I'd just bow my head like a good little servant. But they didn't know that right now I was about to make this room go silent with shame. The name Emily Thompson wasn't theirs to control anymore. The truth folder in my bag was burning hot. It's just one click away from blowing their perfect world to pieces. They had no idea I was sitting on a secret. A plan I'd been building for 3 years. And that night, I knew it was time to play my final card. Everything seemed perfect until Sarah's smug laugh echoed in my head. I remembered the recording I'd listened to a dozen times. Her voice triumphant. "Don't worry, Mom. She won't go anywhere. Last year, I even posed as the airline to cancel her trip with her best friend. Every time I hear it, my stomach knots. My palms go cold. I'm not doing this to torture myself. I just needed to be sure I wasn't crazy." I used to ask myself, am I imagining this? Am I being too sensitive? They spent 6 years convincing me I was a loser. But that recording shattered every excuse I'd ever made for them. But that wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed undeniable proof from their own mouths. The next morning, I went back to the house, pretending I forgot my wallet. I heard Mom and Sarah in the kitchen. I hit record on my phone, slid it onto a bookshelf, and walked. In acting clueless, I think I left my wallet in the living room. Later, I locked myself in my car. The silence was heavy. I hit play. Sarah's voice came through loud and arrogant. "Remember, Mark? I texted him from a burner number. Told him Emily was in a deep depression and couldn't have kids. He ghosted her in 2 days. didn't even ask questions. My heart literally stopped. I couldn't breathe. My mom's voice answered, so calm, "It's fine. Next time, be more careful." That teacher, Michael. Last year, I posed as one of her friends and told him she was drowning in debt and just using him for money. It's easy. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Sarah continued, bitter. "I'm jealous of her, Mom. She's too free. I have to keep her here so she doesn't get ahead of me." Mom sighed. "I get it. But the family needs her. It's her turn to sacrifice a little. It's just the circle of life." The recording ended. The silence was terrifying. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw a ghost pale face, but eyes that were suddenly, dangerously alive. No tears, just steel-cold clarity. I went home like a detective. I dug through old emails. I found Mark's vague breakup message. Checked Mom's old laptop she always asked me to fix at hand. Found a deleted screenshot in the trash sent. To Michael, "I'm Emily's friend. She's in massive debt and plans to use you to pay it off." I tracked the burner number she used. I remembered asking Michael if he'd received any weird texts back then. He dodged the question. I had asked, but no one told me the truth. But the real gut punch was still coming. Deep in the archive, I found a thread from 7 years ago. The sender wasn't Mom. It was my dad. My hands shook as I opened it. Dad wrote, "Margaret, we need to talk about Emily. If she's as successful as Sarah, who's going to take care of us when we're old? Plus, having a stable kid at home makes the family look more reliable to the bank board. We need to keep her here." Mom replied, "You're right. I'll talk to Sarah." The screen blurred. It wasn't just Mom. It wasn't just Sarah. It was Dad, the one I thought was the passive victim. He was the architect. Started this 7 years ago. The deepest stab came from the person I trusted most. In that moment, the world collapsed. My faith in them died right there. But from the ashes of that betrayal, a different Emily was born. Colder, sharper, finished with crying. I started acting. I created an encrypted cloud folder called the Truth. Every photo, every recording, meticulously numbered. It was my way of saying, this is real. I am not imagining this. In that cold clarity, I typed into my browser how to protect yourself from family manipulation. I read about parentification, psychological warfare, and setting boundaries. I saved it all. The folder wasn't just evidence. It was my weapon and my armor. Whenever that old inner voice whispers that I'm crazy or too sensitive, I open it. I know I'm not wrong. And honestly, looking back, the red flags were everywhere. I just didn't want to see them. ... The first sign. It wasn't some huge blowout. It was the dining chair I was never actually allowed to sit in. To understand why a chair matters so much and why I finally walked away from it, I need to take you back to where it all began. The Thompsons lived in a whitewashed colonial mansion in Westport, the ultimate symbol of fake perfection. My dad, the former bank executive. My mom, the charity board president. My sister Sarah, driving a Mercedes SUV paid for with my grad school fund. But that picture-perfect frame hid a dark reality. I was just a decorative accessory, a tool of convenience. The clearest sign of my status wasn't words, it was the dishes. Every night, Sarah and my parents ate off gold-rimmed Wedgwood china. Me, since I was always the one cleaning up, I usually ended up eating a rushed meal off a chipped, light blue plastic plate in the kitchen. That plastic plate was the invisible border. I belonged in the kitchen. They belonged at the feast inn. The family photos lining the staircase, I'm almost always at the edge or half hidden behind Sarah's shoulder. My freelance graphic design job with its flexible schedule became their excuse to make me the default house slave. I wasn't just doing chores. I was the unpaid emotional pillar babysitting the kids, listening to Sarah's endless venting, while my own needs were tossed aside. I once had to ditch a high-stakes meeting to pick up our kids because Sarah was in the middle of a manicure. My mom just shrugged. "Your job is flexible, Emily. What's the big deal helping your sister out? And helping in my house was just a code word for calculated exploitation. Thanksgiving. I was the head chef since dawn, cooking for a table. I wasn't invited to sit at Christmas. I was the gift wrapping factory while my mom played bridge. Every birthday, every evening, my name was all over Mom's planner, like a maid who didn't get a paycheck. The only things I ever got were calloused hands and a reminder that if I disappeared for a day, everything would fall apart, except for my own life. Because I never saw a single dime dot to the neighbors. She'd brag. Our Emily is so devoted. She hates traveling. She just wants to stay home and take care of us and the grandkids. I remember being 27, buzzing with excitement while packing for a trip with my first real boyfriend, Tom. Then my mom's hand accidentally knocked a glass of red wine all over my suitcase and my favorite dress. Trip canceled. The look on Tom's face said it all. You and your family, ... It's too much. Things went cold after that. I didn't realize back then that they were training me to blame myself. Last year, spent 8 hours planning a dinosaur-themed party for my nephew Ethan. While Sarah went to get her nails done because she needed a break, when I mentioned I might miss it to hit a deadline for a client, my mom's voice went icy. Family comes first. Emily, we all have to make sacrifices. Except it felt like I was the only one actually sacrificing anything. The breaking point usually comes in small moments. Like the kitchen apron embroidered with World's Best Auntie that Sarah gave me with a patronizing smile. I wore it every time I came over to scrub and cook. The peak was my last birthday. Mom gave me a high-end robot vacuum and said, I know you're always cleaning, so this is perfect. I used your card to buy it just in advance since you never spend money anyway. I never even opened the box. It sat in the corner like a monument to her twisted expectations. Later, I found out she used my card to pay for Dad's golf club. Fees, too. That was the moment I quietly opened a secret bank account. Emily Thompson, personal. For the first time, I had something that was mine without the guilt. Before I tell you what happened next, if this story is hitting home for you, hit like and subscribe. And drop a comment. Tell me what city you're watching from and what time. It is there right now. Want to know when the truth finally hit me? It was a random Tuesday night. I was hunched over, scrubbing a Castillon Le Croisette pot after another massive family dinner. I realized I couldn't remember the last time someone invited me somewhere without a to-do list attached. That night, I'd cooked my dad's favorite steak, but Mom told the guests, Emily's a good cook. But she's heavy-handed. She doesn't know how to save like Sarah. Sarah just laughed. She learned from the best, Mom. I smiled, but I gripped that steak knife until my knuckles turned white. This exploitation didn't just stop at housework. It crushed my personal happiness years ago. 3 years back, my life shattered. I'd been dating a guy named Mark for 4 years. We talked about marriage, kids, a future. Then one night, he sat me down and said words I'll never forget. I love you, Emily, but I just don't feel that spark anymore. You're just ... Always there, always the same, always there, like a piece of furniture. Or wallpaper nobody bothers to look at. That night, I curled up on the cold bathroom floor, clutching my knees. My shaking fingers scrolled through a list of unanswered texts. Am I really this worthless? The question hit me like a sledgehammer. I cried until my face was numb, but no amount of tears could fill the hollow pit in my chest. In that moment of total despair, I had no idea that my own family's hands had been quietly erasing every chance I had at happiness. After he left, I wandered into an old pawn shop downtown. I don't know why. Maybe I was looking for something to fill the void. That's when I saw it. An old but well-kept Canon DSLR, priced at $180. I bought it with money I was supposed to be saving. I didn't tell a soul. That camera became the biggest secret of my life. I started shooting things most people ignore. Elderly people sitting quietly at bus stops. the exhausted faces of night shift street sweepers, the calloused hands of street vendors, the people this society looks right through like they're made of air, exactly the way my family looked through me. I called this series The Hidden Smiles. I started an anonymous Instagram. No face, no real name, just the photos. Within 3 years, I hit over 12,000 followers. People who actually saw what I saw. People who actually felt it. I kept that camera wrapped in an old scarf in the deepest corner of my closet. It was the only thing I kept for myself, but I wasn't completely alone. In the Thompson family, there was one person who actually saw me. My Aunt Claire, my mom's sister. My mom always called her the disappointment of the family. Stever. Married, she quit a stable job to do illustration and opened a tiny studio in Santa Cruz. My mom never forgave her for that. She said Claire threw her future away to play with paint. I'd been secretly calling Aunt Claire every Sunday night for 7 years. She was the first person to see my hidden illustrations. When I sent her my first sketch just to test the waters, her response made me burst into tears. Emily, this is extraordinary. You have the soul of a genius. Nobody had ever used the word extraordinary to describe me. She was the one who kept me drawing, kept me posting anonymously, and then all that silent grinding finally paid off. 3 weeks before my parents' big anniversary, I got an email. I almost hit delete thinking it was spam, but it was from a gallery in Santa Cruz called Ocean Light. They were asking for a solo exhibition. I stared at the screen for 20 minutes, my heart hammering so hard I thought my ribs would snap. But I didn't hit reply. Not yet. After years of being told I was a loser, still couldn't believe something this good was meant for me. But Aunt Claire stepped in. She told me, Emily, I hope you're not mad, but I sent your portfolio to a gallery owner I know in Santa Cruz. His name is Jake. I nearly dropped my phone. Claire, he just emailed me. I know, sweetie, she said, her voice soft but firm. He wants to give you your own show. You've earned this, Emily. You don't need anyone's permission to chase your dream. I learned that too. Late, don't let that be your story. That night, I finally emailed Jake back with a flicker of hope. I started prepping for the night of destiny, my parents' 35th wedding anniversary. A milestone my mom described as worth every penny to flaunt. That meant 40 VIP guests, a gourmet menu I had to cook myself to save costs, and a whole night dedicated to the perfect Thompson marriage. Prepping started a week out. Had to ghost my design clients to Playmade. I ordered white roses and peonies per mom's demands. I hand calligraphed 60 invites because they had to look expensive. I did it all earning, polishing. The Waterford crystal wedding gifts from 35 years ago. The day of the party, I was up at 6 a.m. in old jeans and a t-shirt. No point dressing up when you're stuck in the kitchen for 12 hours. By 6 p.m., the house was a magazine cover. Candles everywhere. The long table set with mom's finest china. I threw on a simple black dress. Nothing flashy. Emily. Mom barked. From the hall, she scanned me, nose wrinkled. You're wearing that? It's so dark. I thought it was classy, Mom. It's fine, whatever. Just stay in the back. Today is about your father and me. I nodded. I always nodded. Guests rolled in at 7 p.m., 40 people who thought they knew the Thompsons. None of them knew who I was, and in 3 hours, that wouldn't even matter. Sarah arrived at 7:15, naturally timed for maximum attention. She strutted in wearing a designer gown, flaunting it to anyone who'd listen. Mom lunged at her, gushing over how stunning she looked. I watched from the kitchen door, sweat dripping under a stained apron, holding a tray of seared steaks. Everyone, you remember Sarah and David? Mom announced to the room. David was promoted to senior engineer last year. We're so proud. The room erupted in applause. Mom conveniently forgot to mention I was the one babysitting their kids every teen. every single night so David could finish his projects. For free, obviously. I spent the night circulating with appetizers, refilling wine glasses, answering questions for guests who didn't even recognize me. "Are you with the catering company?" Woman asked. Before I could answer, Mom appeared. "Oh, that's Emily, my other daughter. She's just helping out tonight." The woman gave a polite smile and walked away. Mom didn't notice. She never did. But what she didn't know was that the stakes weren't the only thing I'd prepared for. Tonight, while Mom and Sarah were soaking up the spotlight, I was still the invisible worker. Sarah walked up, wine glass in hand, sighing. "David is so busy. I've been taking the kids to swim practice all by myself. I'm exhausted." Mom immediately rushed over with a warm towel and the best appetizer on the plate. Then she turned to me. "Oh, poor baby, you work so hard. Emily, go get your sister some more water." A few minutes later, David shoved Ethan toward me and let Lily tug on my dress. "Hey, watch the kids. Sarah and I need to socialize." It wasn't, "Do you mind?" or "Thank you." It was just "Watch the kids." Like I was checking in luggage. I took them, I fed them in the kitchen and cleaned Ethan's face after he spilled juice. I had to tell Lily 3 stories just to keep her from running into the living room and ruining the party. By the time I finally stepped back out, dessert was served. I hadn't eaten all day. Nobody had bothered to save me a plate. The big announcement came at 9 p.m. My dad stood up, clinking his fork against a champagne flute. The room went dead silent. "Margaret and I want to thank you all for being here." He started using that practiced, warm banker voice. 35 years of marriage, 3 decades of building this family, this life, this home. And to celebrate, he continued, pausing for effect. "Next week, we're taking the whole family to Florida. A week at the most exclusive resort, a second anniversary just for the Thompsons." The room buzzed with excitement. "Sarah, actually," squealed Dad. "That's amazing. The kids are gonna love it." A jolt of electricity ran down my spine. The whole family, that meant me too. This time I wouldn't be the cook or the nanny. I'd actually be one of them. Step forward, letting myself smile. "That sounds incredible. Mom, what time is our flight?" The question hung in the air. My dad's face shifted instantly. He glanced at Mom. It was that silent signal they always used to look I'd seen 1,000 times, but only now did I truly understand it. "Emily," he said slowly, "you don't need to know the flight time." The room went cold. "I don't understand." My voice cracked. Dad cleared his throat. "Because you're not on the list." 40 pairs of eyes stared at me. 40 people just watched my father announce I was excluded from the family vacation. "Someone has to stay and watch the house," Mom added, like it was the most logical thing in the world. "Sarah and David need a real break. That means you're staying behind to watch the kids." But I started, but Mom's voice cut through me like a knife. "Be real, Emily. It's not like you have anything important to do. Sarah has been working so hard. She deserves a rest." Sarah? Working hard. Sarah, who hires a nanny 3 days a week and still complains about being tired? "It's just 1 week," David added, not even looking at me. The kids love their auntie. My dad's silence was the final blow. I caught his eye, desperate. He looked like he wanted to say something, but when Margaret gave him that warning glare, he just looked down at his water. Silence. In that moment when my father looked away, I heard a tiny snap in my chest. It wasn't my heart breaking. It was the last layer of ice around it finally shattering. Here is the translation and localization of your provided text into English. Following the Shuhari principle and optimize for a viral high-retention storytelling style, little Lily reached out and tugged on my hand, her eyes wide. "Auntie Emily, where are you going while we're in Florida?" Sarah answered before I could even open my mouth, not even looking at me. "Auntie's staying here to wait for you guys. She loves being home." I knelt down to Lily's level and gave her a small, tight smile. I'm going somewhere beautiful, sweetie. One day, I'll tell you all about it. Inside, a voice screamed, I won't let Lily grow up thinking women were born to sacrifice. This cycle ends with me. The glass in my hand started to shake. I set the plate down because I knew if I held it any longer, it was going to shatter. Of course, I heard myself say, I get it. I flashed the same fake smile I'd been wearing for 30 years. But deep down, something finally snapped. I excused myself to the kitchen, leaned against the sink, and closed my eyes. For the first time in my life, I started drafting a completely different plan. A few minutes later, Sarah appeared in the doorway. Emily, don't be like that, she said, touching my arm. You know, David and I really need this as time. Look, it's just a week and it's not like you have a boyfriend or any real commitments. Your schedule is flexible. Flexible. There it was again. The last ounce of respect I had for her evaporated when she handed me a piece of paper full. A 4-sheet filled with a to-do list. Watch the dog, water the plants, grab the mail, fix the fence, and the kids' entire schedule. I wrote everything down, even the food allergies. So I'll text you the details. She didn't ask. She didn't even check if I was free. She just assumed. That was the cold, hard truth. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as staff. And staff has the right to quit. By midnight, the last guests had finally cleared out. I was alone in the living room folding linens when I remembered I had to send a design file to a client. I walked over to the kitchen island to use Mom's computer. When I opened it, her Gmail was still logged in. I should have closed it. I really should have. But then a subject line caught my eye that made my heart stop. Florida arrangements, Emily's situation. My name. They were talking about me behind my back. A whisper in my head said, if they respected you, this email wouldn't even exist. I clicked. It was a thread between my mom and Sarah. Margaret Thompson wrote, just keep Emily home to watch the kids. It's not like she has anything important going on anyway. David's right having her is like having a free maid. She should be grateful. We give her something to do. Sarah's reply, totally agree, Mom. Maybe she'll feel useful for once in her life. Honestly, it's a little pathetic. But hey, it works for us. I read those words 3 times. Free maid. Should be grateful. Pathetic. My chest tightened, but then a cold, sharp clarity replaced the pain. Those lines were enough. Every last illusion I had about my family died right there on that screen. I screenshotted the thread, sent it to myself, and wiped the browser history. Then I sat in that dark kitchen, the house where I grew up, and finally accepted what I was to them. I wasn't a daughter or a sister. I was a tool. And it was time for that tool to vanish. I sat in the dark for a long time, staring at my phone. Jake's email was glowing on the screen. He was actually hyped about my illustrations. Wanted to meet in person to see my full portfolio. I could go. I could actually do this. I picked up the phone and called the only person who would understand. Claire picked up on the second ring, even though it was past midnight. Emily, what's wrong? I told her everything. The announcement, the humiliation, the emails. My voice broke just once when I said the words free maid. When I finished, the other end was silent for a beat. Then Aunt Claire said something I'll never forget. Emily, I have a spare room above the studio. I need help in the mornings anyway. And that gallery. It's a 20-minute drive from here. Yes, you can. You can leave. You can choose yourself for once. The only person stopping you is you. I hung up at 2 a.m. By 6 a.m., I started packing. 3 suitcases, my art supplies, my laptop, and that old scarf wrapping my Canon camera. I left behind the world's best anti-apron and that robot vacuum, still sitting in its box in the corner, monuments to my mom's twisted expectations. For the first time in 30 years, I chose me. If you're still listening, I have to ask, have you ever had to choose between your family and your own soul? Have you ever stood at a crossroads where staying meant losing yourself? Tell me your story in the comments down. Let me tell you what happened when I officially broke the news. 2 days before the Florida trip, I drove to my parents' place one last time. Mom was in the living room, busy color-coding outfits for the vacation. Sarah was on the sofa scrolling through resort reviews. Dad was in his usual armchair with the newspaper body there, mind elsewhere. I have something to tell you all, I said, standing in the doorway. Mom didn't even look up. It's about the kids' schedule. Sarah already sent it to you. Not that I'm not watching the kids. I won't be here. That got them. Sarah's head snapped up. Mom's hands froze over a pile of sundresses. What do you mean? Not be here? Where are you going? California. I'm moving in with Aunt Claire. California. Dad dropped the paper. What kind of job opportunity? A professional one. Something I've worked for. I didn't know them the details. I didn't know them anything. Sarah's face contorted. Emily, are you serious? I'm counting on you. We've planned this whole trip around you being home. You planned a trip around me without asking me? I said calmly. I'm not ruining my life just because you assumed I didn't have one. The silence was deafening. Then Mom stood up, her voice as cold as a January frost. You are being incredibly selfish, Emily. Sarah needs you. Family is supposed to be the #1 priority. Family is the priority. I repeated her words back to her. Except when it comes to inviting me to Florida, right, Mom? She opened her mouth, then shut it. Dad cleared his throat. If you walk out that door, don't expect us to welcome you back with open arms. I know, I said, okay, because even when I was here, those arms were never really open for me. The next 24 hours were a crash course in emotional manipulation. Mom called 6 times. Every voicemail was more dramatic than the last. You're tearing this family apart, Emily. Your father is a wreck. He won't even touch his dinner. And Sarah's been crying all night. Sarah tried a different play. Weaponized vulnerability. Emily, I don't get why you're doing this to me. I'm your sister. And then the text that almost broke me. You're going to end up alone, you know, just like Aunt Claire. Is that really what you want? I stared at those words for a long time. Just like Aunt Claire. They meant it as an insult, but Claire was actually happy. Maybe becoming like her wasn't a threat, it was a promise. I powered off my phone the next morning. As the sun began to crawl over the horizon, I took the final step. I walked through my empty apartment one last time. 3 suitcases by the door. I taped my spare key inside an envelope and slid it under the landlord's door. A clean break. I loaded my gear into my 10-year-old Toyota Corolla, the car my mother spent years being embarrassed by, while the rest of the family was prepping for their Florida getaway. I made one last stop at the Colonial Mansion to leave my partying gift. I dropped my keys on the kitchen island right next to the to-do list I'd crossed out with a thick red marker. I left a note to the Thompson family. I, Emily Thompson, officially resigned from my position as unpaid maid, emotional punching, bag, and backup nanny, effective immediately. Reason: toxic work environment, 0 growth, and a total lack of basic human respect. Good luck with the next candidate. Do not contact me. I hit the gas and didn't look back, heading straight for Santa Cruz, California. For the first time in my life, I could actually breathe. During those first few months in Santa Cruz, I started weekly teletherapy. I had to learn how to set boundaries without the soul-crushing guilt, something I'd never been taught in 30 years. Meanwhile, back in Westport, their perfect world was imploding. Sarah was late for every pickup. The house was a wreck. When Ethan caught a fever and Sarah called me in a panic, I just texted back, "You're his mother. You'll figure it out. Hope he feels better soon." She finally had to face reality. Without me, she actually had to be a parent. The fallout was brutal. David gave her a cold ultimatum. Get therapy, Sarah, or I'm filing for divorce and full custody. My mom's charity gala was a total disaster without her star assistant. The cracks in her perfect reputation started to show. They tried to patch it up with fake family photos on Instagram, but the dark circles under Sarah's eyes didn't lie. That house was nothing but a hollow shell once the victim stopped playing along. Sarah even sent a small package to Santa Cruz's old family photo and a note. "Please come home. Mom is so depressed." I opened it, looked at the photo, and slowly dropped it into the trash. I didn't reply, but yeah, I cried. Alone, but now I'm actually living. Santa Cruz is the kind of place that feels like a dream at first. Cute cottages and see mist rolling through the cypress trees. Aunt Claire's studio is on a quiet street lined with blooming lavender. My room is upstairs, small but bright, with a white duvet, a desk by the window, and a view of the Pacific. Here, I'm not a tool. I'm just me. You take the morning shift, Claire explained during our first dinner. 6 a.m. to noon. After that, the day is yours. I can't thank you enough, Claire. ... She waved it off. Don't thank me. Build something. That's the only thanks I need. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. I tied on a new apron knot, the world's best auntie one. Just a simple canvas apron with her studio logo. I started learning how to do pour-overs. Customers drifted in and out. Locals calling Claire by name. Tourists mesmerized by the smell of fresh scones. I took orders, wiped tables, chatted with strangers, people who had no clue I'd abandoned my entire life. Just 5 days ago, by noon, I'd made $42 in tips. I'd smiled more in 5 hours than I had in the last 5 months. It wasn't much, but it was the first paycheck of my freedom. At 3 p.m., I had my meeting at Ocean Light. I showered, put on the best dress I owned, and walked 3 blocks to meet the man who could change everything. Jake wasn't at all what I expected. I'd imagined some intimidating guy in a suit with slicked back hair, the kind of gallery owner who makes artists feel small. Instead, the man greeting me at Ocean Light Gallery was Jake. A tall guy with windswept hair and eyes that looked like they'd seen 1,000 stories. He was wearing a linen shirt with the sleeves rolled up, smiling like we were old friends. "Emily Thompson," he said, shaking my hand. "Claire's told me a lot, but the work speaks for itself." He walked me through the gallery. White walls, natural light, everything curated with surgical precision. This was the real deal. "I went through your portfolio," Jake continued. "The Hidden Smiles series. Extraordinary. There's a truth in those strokes that most artists take decades to capture." I was speechless. No one had ever talked about my work like that. This one, he stopped in front of a large monitor showing my digital drafts. It was the old woman waiting alone at the bus stop. Her face was a map of wrinkles and quiet dignity. "This is the piece that made me call you. There's something in her eyes, patience, or maybe just acceptance. It hits hard." She was waiting for a bus that was 40 minutes late, I whispered. Nobody stopped to ask if she was okay. Jake nodded slowly. "You really see people, Emily. You see them for who they are. That's a gift." He turned to me, and his next words were the key that finally fit the lock of my life. "I want to offer you a solo show. 15 pieces, opening in 6 weeks. We'll handle the printing, framing, and marketing. You keep 60% of every sale." I signed that contract on a Tuesday afternoon, sitting at Jake's desk with the sun streaming through the gallery window. It wasn't just a business agreement. It was my manifesto. My debut exhibition, rebranded as Unbroken Lines, was a success beyond my wildest dreams. 14 out of 15 pieces sold in just 3 days. When the first one went for $12,000, I couldn't believe my eyes. The invoice had my signature on it. Emily Thompson, artist. In that moment of pure bliss, I did something to officially bury the past. I took a photo of that invoice and placed it next to an old selfie from my Westport kitchen when I was 28, face haggard. Soul dead after a day of running errands for the family. In one frame, there was $0 for a lifetime of service. In the other, $12,000 for one piece of art that came from my soul. Value wasn't a vague concept anymore. It was a number, a signature, an undeniable truth. Jake stood next to me, but he wasn't looking at the check. He looked at me and said, "You've always been worth this, Emily. The world is just finally seeing what I saw a long time ago." Money gave me independence, but what it really gave me was recognition. I was no longer a piece of furniture in that colonial house. I was an artist, a free woman. 6 weeks later, I stood in the center of Ocean Light Gallery, and I had to pinch myself. 15 of my works were on the walls, blown up and encased in sleek black frames. The room was glowing under warm amber lights. A string quartet played in the corner, Jake's idea. A server was pouring champagne. Over 60 people were artists I'd met through Claire, collectors Jake had invited, even a reporter from an art mag scribbling in a notebook. These people were here just to see my work. I was wearing a simple, elegant navy dress, hair down, and even a bit of lipstick, something I almost never did. Aunt Claire appeared by my side, handing me a glass of bubbly. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified," I admitted. "What if nobody buys anything?" "Someone already did." She nodded toward a sophisticated woman inspecting the centerpiece, the woman at the bus stop. A small red dot was already on the label. "That's Mrs. Sterling. She owns half the art in this county. Just bought it. For $4,200. $4,200 for something I created from my heart." "Emily," Jake rushed over, beaming. "I want to introduce you to the reporter. They're considering you for next month's cover." The cover. My face, my name, my story, ... in print. I was about to answer when the gallery doors swung open and my stomach dropped. Sarah and David walked in, skin still lobster red from the Florida sun. They looked completely out of place. Sarah was in a loud floral sundress, more suited for a beach brunch than an art opening. David was scowling at something on his phone. They scanned the room with that look I knew too well, that judgmental squint they use for anything they don't understand. Then Sarah spotted me. "Emily." She lunged forward, arms wide, like we were having some dramatic reunion she'd been dreading. "Oh my God, we've been so worried about you." 60 guests turned to stare. The quartet missed a beat. "Sarah," I said, keeping my voice level. "This is ... unexpected. We had to come." Her eyes were shimmering with that practiced fake sincerity. "We just flew back yesterday. Mom found your Instagram. She's been calling everyone to track you." Don David stepped up, giving me a nod like we were old business partners. "Nice place, Emily. Not bad." "It's a gallery," I said. "And this is my opening." Sarah blinked, finally looking at the art on the walls. Sue saw the guests, the champagne, the price tags. "You ... You did all this." Her voice was laced with confusion. "Since when do you even do this?" "For 3 years? You just never bothered to ask what I did in my spare time." Aunt Claire stepped in beside me, a silent wall of support. In the distance, I saw Jake watching closely, ready to jump in. Sarah leaned in closer, dropping her voice. "Emily, look, I have news. I'm pregnant again. Number 3. And I really need you to come home. David's job is insane right now. Mom's no help with the kids. I need you." There it was. Not a sorry. Not a congratulations on the show. Just need. It's always their needs. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. I need you. How many times had I heard that? How many times had I dropped everything, rearranged my life, and shrunk myself to fit the space they carved out for me? "Sarah," I said softly, "I am in the middle of my gallery opening. I know, and it's lovely." "Really?" She waved her hand at my life's work like it was a cute little hobby. "But we can talk about that later. Right now, I need to know. When you're coming back, she isn't." Aunt Claire's voice cut through like a razor. "Emily lives here now." David stepped forward, his frustration bubbling up. "With all due respect, Claire, this is a private family matter. Family matter." Claire's voice was ice cold as she crossed her arms. Or is it a matter of exploiting a family member as a free resource? The room went dead silent. Every eye was on us. Sarah's face flushed deep red. She stammered, searching for a comeback. David looked stunned. Before they could mutter a single excuse, I took a step forward out of the shadow of my usual silence. I wasn't backing into a corner. This time, for 30 years, I had made myself small. I had been quiet, compliant, and invisible. But not tonight. I stepped into the center of my own exhibition and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Sarah, I hear that you're pregnant. Congratulations, truly. I am not moving back to Westport to be your nanny. Emily, I wasn't finished, but I am. My voice didn't even shake. You can hire a maid, hire two. David makes plenty at that tech firm, and you've never had a problem spending money. What you can't do is hire me because I never got paid in the first place. Sarah opened her mouth to speak, then snapped it shut. I could feel the guests closing in, circling us like a live audience at a high-stakes taping. This isn't a hobby, I said, pointing to the pieces on the walls. This is my career. I built this for 3 years while you all assumed I was just free. And let's be crystal clear, I pointed to the painting Mrs. Sterling had just bought. That piece alone just sold for $4,200. Tonight, I've sold 4. That's $8,000 in one evening. My work has value. I have value. And I am never going back to being your unpaid help. Silence. Absolute pin-drop silence. David cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. Sarah's eyes started to well up with tears. Then Jake started to clap. Aunt Claire joined in. Mrs. Sterling raised her champagne flute in a silent toast. One by one, the other guests followed. The applause echoed through the gallery, not just for the art, but for me. For the moment, I finally stood tall and said, "Enough." I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just looked my sister in the eye and said, "I hope your pregnancy goes well. Sincerely." Then I turned and walked away. By the time the gallery closed that night, 8 out of 15 pieces were gone. Total revenue, $14,000. My cut was $8,400, exactly 60% as promised. Jake handed me the sales printout. Not bad for an opening night, especially with the bonus family drama. Asterisk, I stared at that $8,400. It was more than I'd made in 4 months as a freelance designer. Mrs. Sterling wants a commission, Jake added. She has a villa in Big Sur and wants you to illustrate the coastline. She loves your eye. He tucked a business card into my hand. Give them a call next week. I tucked it into my pocket next to my contract. Jake smiled. And Susan, the reporter. She said she has everything she needs. They're looking at you for next month's cover.
An actual magazine cover. My name, my face, my story. That night, Aunt Claire helped me carry the remaining 7 pieces up to the room above the studio. I placed my first art check on the desk and took a photo. Not for social media, but for me. Pay Emily Thompson. Amount $8,400. I thought it was over. I thought that standoff at the gallery was enough for the Thompsons to realize I wasn't their puppet anymore. But I was wrong. The look Sarah gave Jake before she stormed out wasn't acceptance. It was the gathering of a storm. A storm that was waiting to break on the happiest day of my life. During those months of peace, something beautiful grew between me and Jake. He saw me, not for what I could do for him, but for who I was. 8 months later, we were engaged. The wedding was set for the beach in Santa Cruz. As our 45 closest friends were cheering for us, a strange rustle came from the edge of the ceremony. The Thompson family had arrived. This time, it wasn't soft manipulation or begging. They walked in like a combat unit, my parents leading the charge with stone-cold faces, followed by Sarah and David. My piece was ripped wide open again. My mother, draped in an expensive Burberry coat, marched through the guests, her eyes locked onto mine. My father trailed behind, unreadable. Sarah tried to look triumphant, but the exhaustion was etched deep under her eyes. Emily. My mother's voice cut through the minister's blessing. That voice, that ice-cold tone that had frozen my entire childhood, tore through the atmosphere, making even the sound of the ocean seem to hold its breath. "We need to talk," she announced. "Not a request, a command. Right now." Her eyes bored into me like a drill trying to shatter the peace I'd spent months building. I didn't flinch. I didn't step back. Instead, I walked forward into the center of the circle. I reached into my pocket, feeling the weight of the USB drive against my palm. "No, Mom," my voice rang out, clear enough for every witness to hear. "This is my wedding, and this is the moment everyone, including you, is going to hear the truth." Jake nodded at me, signaling the tech crew. Jake gripped my hand. Aunt Claire stepped up beside me. I took one deep breath and stepped out of the line, facing them right in the middle of the gasping crowd. "You traveled a long way to be here," I said, my voice dead calm. "Of course we did." My mother raised her voice, turning it into a public proclamation. "You vanished. You abandoned your family when we needed you most, and now," she scanned the crowd with pure disdain, "I find you here, throwing a lavish wedding while your sister is pregnant and struggling all by herself." "Sarah is pregnant and perfectly capable of hiring help," I replied, my voice steady and clear. "She's not struggling, she's just inconvenienced because she actually has to do the things she's used to dumping on me." "Don't be so cruel and ungrateful, Emily. This isn't like you." "You're right, Mom," I nodded, a sad smile touching my lips. "This isn't the me you want, the me you can order around. But you never actually saw that, Emily. To you, she was just a tool to be used." My father spoke up, his voice weaker than hers. "Emily, your mother is just trying to say." "I know what she's trying to say, Dad. I've heard it my whole life. Family comes first. Make sacrifices. Don't be selfish." I looked him dead in the eye, searching for the fairness I used to hope lived there. "But I wasn't even on the list for the Florida trip, was I? Do you remember that? So what is it? Am I family or not?" Their silence was the most painful answer of all. My mother was the first to regain her composure, waving her hand as if shooing a fly. "Florida was just one trip. You're overreacting. Someone had to stay with the kids." "Someone," I repeated syllable by syllable. "Why was it me? Why is it always me?" "Because you have the time. You don't have a husband. You don't have children. What else do you have to do?" My mother screamed, her mask of politeness finally shattering to reveal her pure contempt. Right then, Sarah stepped forward, eyes red, but her voice dripping with resentment. "And you think those little things give you the right to abandon your family? You think your little doodles are more important than my home? Enough, Sarah." For the first time, Jake spoke. He stepped to my side, his voice deep and heavy with authority. "This is our wedding, not a trial for Emily. This is exactly where she needs to be judged." Sarah shrieked, turning to the crowd. "She's a runaway, an ingrate. My mother is a wreck because of her." The air was thick with tension. I knew it was time. I looked at Jake and nodded. He signaled the tech booth. Per spore, instead of our happy engagement photos, the giant screen behind us flickered to life, displaying a folder titled The Truth. One by one, the evidence flashed before everyone's eyes. The Florida chore list with my name crossed out in red, screenshots of emails between Mom and Sarah calling me a free maid, and finally, the audio. I hit play. Against the sound of the crashing waves, Sarah's smug voice and Mom's cold tone rang out clearly. They detailed how they canceled my trips and faked messages to sabotage my relationships with Mark and Michael. Confessions of jealousy, plots to keep me close, and the cycle of ruthless sacrifice they forced on me. The entire beach fell into a shocked, hollow silence. When the recording ended, the air felt heavy with disgust and pity. In that stunned silence, a woman stood up from the guest seating. It was Dr. Evelyn Reed, the psychologist I'd been seeing weekly since I moved to Santa Cruz. I had invited her, the woman who taught me how to set boundaries, as a guest of honor. Her voice was calm, a steady light in the storm. "As a professional and a guest here, I have to say, what we just witnessed isn't just a family spat. This is a textbook case of parentification, a form of psychological abuse where a child, and later an adult, is forced to serve the emotional and physical needs of the parents and the entire family. Emily didn't run away. She rescued herself from a system of manipulation that robbed her of her childhood and her right to live."
Dr. Reed's explanation hit like a bucket of cold water. Then a single clap rang out from Mrs. Sterling, my gallery patron. Then a second, a third, until the entire beach erupted in a roar of support and sympathy. Shouts of, "That's enough," and "Leave her alone," filled the air. Faced with total public humiliation and the naked truth, my parents had nothing left to say. My mother's face was white, her hands trembling. My father looked at me, his eyes a messy blur of shame, regret, and helplessness. He didn't speak. He just gave a small, quick nod, the only apology I would ever get. Then he turned away, pulling Margaret along, who could only keep her head down as they hurried through the judging crowd. Sarah stood frozen, her makeup smeared with tears. David pulled her arm, his face dejected. Before she left, Sarah looked at me one last time, her voice cracking. I didn't know. I shook my head. Now you do, and what you do with that knowledge is your responsibility, not mine. They left, leaving behind an emotional silence and a beach bathed in the orange glow of sunset. The ceremony continued with a warmth and solidarity 10 times stronger than before. That night, after the guests had gone, Jake and I sat by a small bonfire. The peace after the storm was surreal. He took my hand. On my wrist, the old family bracelet was gone. In its place was a simple gold band he'd given me, engraved with one word, unbroken. One day, an anonymous package arrived at the studio. Inside was the family bracelet, along with a check for the exact amount of the golf club fees my mother had stolen from my card years ago, plus interest. There was a card. "Emily, I'm sorry for being a passive accomplice. I'm returning what was always yours. I should have done this sooner. I'm so proud of you. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Dad." I put the bracelet and the check in a small wooden box on my bookshelf. I didn't wear it, but I didn't throw it away either. It's just a closed chapter. I also got an email from Sarah. "I started therapy. The doctor is saying a lot of things I don't want to hear. I'm sorry for those 6 years. S." I moved the email to a folder titled "Not My Burden" and left it unanswered. I don't need a late apology for a youth that was stolen. That night I burned my old photos, watching the flames lick away the face of the submissive girl I used to see in the mirror. For the first time in 6 years, I didn't hear their voices in my head. There was only the beautiful, ringing silence of freedom. They lost a maid. I found myself. People will call me cruel for ruining my own wedding, for humiliating my parents in front of 45 guests, and for putting Jake, the only man who ever truly loved me, through that chaos. They'll say I should have just walked away quietly. But they don't understand. 6 years of my life were hijacked. The men I loved were chased away. My soul was suffocated. Who pays the price for that? I didn't ruin a wedding. I stopped a play where I was the puppet and my parents were the directors. I know I'll be labeled a traitor, a homewrecker. But I'm not running from them. I'm running from the version of myself they created, the girl who believed she only deserved plastic plates in the kitchen and canceled vacations. I did one last thing. I set up an auto-reply on my email. If anyone from the Thompson family reaches out, they get a link to the truth folder. I'm done explaining. The truth can speak for itself now. A week later, I got a call from Lily. "Auntie Emily, I miss you. Why won't you come back? Mommy says you're mad at everyone, but I love you." Her voice broke and my heart twisted into a knot. Do I forgive them just to keep a connection with a child, or do I cut ties to save myself? I chose to cut ties. The price is the guilt over an innocent child, but it's a price I'm willing to pay for my sanity. Sometimes I look back at my old self-portraits, the ones with the tired, defeated eyes. I don't hesitate to delete them. That woman is gone. She's been replaced by someone who knows how to say no when it's necessary, and yes only when she truly chooses to. My story isn't about revenge or a flashy victory. It's about the journey to find freedom. Realizing that your worth isn't measured by how useful you are to others, but by your own inherent value. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away to build a life where you are finally allowed to be yourself. So that's it. They lost an unpaid maid. I found my soul. I'm no longer a faded pattern on the family tablecloth. I'm the artist painting my own vibrant future. And if you've ever felt like an extra piece in your own home, remember, you are not alone. And you deserve to be free. Before we part ways, I truly want to ask, do you stand behind Emily's decision to walk away? Please leave a comment with a yes if you believe she did the right thing, or a no if you feel there might have been another way. Perhaps my story mirrors a part of your own journey as well. If you would like to walk beside me on this path toward healing and freedom, please consider subscribing to the channel below. Every single subscription at this moment feels like a warm, encouraging hand clasp, giving me the strength to share even more. Thank you so much for listening.